We're launching a new series of in-depth reporting called CBSN Originals. The first report is from correspondent Vladimir Duthiers.
He explores France and the dangerous environment where radical terrorists are thriving in the midst of poverty and exclusion. Here's a preview.
Comme le Duthiers. Ça arrive d'être vénère, mais pourquoi péter un câble? Peux-tu nous graisser pour un manque de respect? Ça peut aller très vite.
The truth of the matter is, it sucks to be a Muslim in France. Muslims in France are poorer on average than the rest of the population. Their kids go to schools that are not as high quality. There is hardcore discrimination for jobs.
This young man, he has 6 brothers and 1 sister and a mom. They all live in an apartment this size.
In my opinion, I don't think it was, if it was in a richer neighborhood, I don't think that the police would have taken the same choice, like grenading and shooting like madness.
But are these bullet holes over here?
We can fight terrorism if in France, at the beginning, we're not united.
So Vlad joins us now to talk a little bit about this. This is super interesting, Vlad, and I think you're exploring these suburbs of Paris that we've heard so much about. A lot of rumors, a lot of innuendo, the hotbeds of youth with disenfranchised and angry. We've heard about those no-go zones for police, whether they exist or not. What was your biggest takeaway?
The reality is that these neighborhoods, these banlieues, which are just a couple of minutes outside of Paris, not more than 20 minutes or so, are areas where there are a lot of people who are disenfranchised. They receive less police support. They have schools that are not up to par to the rest of French society. Their infrastructure is not up to par with the rest of French society. And they've been in essence, they've been barricaded into these ghettos. That's what they are. They call them banlieues, which in the literal translation means suburbs, but really they're projects and ghettos. And yet, the people there are like the people in Queens. Queens, New York is one of the most diverse communities in the world. So is Saint-Denis, which is where we were. There are over 100 different nationalities living within that community. Now, as far as the idea that terrorism or radicalism can take root there are some people who say that that has happened. But the most part, by and large, the people that are there say that the people who've committed these terrible acts in France and elsewhere are not true Muslims. They're not following Islam. In fact, one of the men that we spoke to said something interesting to me. He said, the fact that these guys, these terrorists, were able to hide out in Saint-Denis is because they know it's a poor community, a community that they can blend in, a community that police do not come into often, and they're not going to be questioned. If they had tried to rent an apartment in the 16th arrondissement of Paris, which is one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Paris, they would have immediately been busted. And then another guy told me, these guys, they call themselves Muslims, but in Islam, we are told that if you take the life of one person, you take the life of all of humanity. And if you save one life, you save all of humanity. And that was the sentiment that we got from a lot of people there.
I'm curious, it's so fascinating to watch your interaction with these young men. How do they navigate their way through what is a very complex, in some cases, not a very hopeful kind of situation for them?
It is definitely tough. They say that they're clearly comfortable at home in Saint-Denis, in the banlieue that we visited. There's one big, huge concrete apartment building. I've never seen anything like this even in the U.S. It's called Cité 4000. It is a big, immense concrete block of an apartment, and we actually go into one of the squatters' apartments. There we're just right there in that image you're seeing there. We're just outside of the courtyard of that building. And they're comfortable in their neighborhood, in their hood, just like everybody else anywhere in the world when they're surrounded by people that they know. But when they go into Paris, if they want to go out to a club or if they want to go into a shop, people look at them. They give them, sideways glances. They say they feel very, very uncomfortable. And so they don't really go into Paris that often unless they have to go for work. One guy told me, that even when he goes into Paris, he was looking for a job. And they said to him, would you be willing to change your name? His name is Abdoulaye. He was born in France. He's a French citizen. His parents came from Mali. And he said, well, what name would you want me to change it to? And they said a name that's more French, like, Francois. And to me, that was really heartbreaking to hear that somebody would say to you to change the name that your family blessed you with for a name that is just more palatable to Western ears.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you talked to a lot of people who said these jihadists, they don't represent what Islam really is. But I'm wondering, there must be a level of frustration. What outlets do they use then?
They don't have a lot. Yeah. That is the problem. We spoke to the deputy mayor of Saint-Denis, and she said that on the first day of the school year, there were 500 kids in Saint-Denis that didn't have a teacher. Just didn't have a teacher. You send your kid to school, they show up in class, no teachers.
It's incredible.
Because there's not enough to go around for that community. And so when we ask somebody, can you understand why some young men in your neighborhood might become radicalized? Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, it's not the question of understanding, and how can I speak for somebody who's been recruited by a terror network? A lot of these guys they don't go to mosques. They're not very religious. They go from the streets, where they're hanging out with their buddies on the street corners all day long, to somebody saying to them, hey, come to Syria. They don't love you in France. They don't care about you in France. They want you to change your name in France. We're going to love you. We're going to feed you. We're going to take care of you. And we're going to ask you to strike back at those people who've made you feel like that. And that's how the recruiters get at these young guys.
Wow. Such a fascinating look. I know you and your team put a lot of work into this. Vlad, thanks for showing us some of that. You can catch the full report tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on CBSN.